Imagine you are awake while the rest of the town sleeps. You stand behind a row of houses, beneath a wooden privy built directly over a pit. The smell has been there for days. Tonight, you are here because the pit is full. You remove the planks and climb down into the narrow space below. There is barely room to turn. The walls press close. The floor is not really a floor at all. It is layers of human waste, soaked and compacted over time. This is what you have come to collect. You work with buckets and your hands. There is no clean-edged grip and no dry place to stand. Everything shifts when you move. The contents stick, slide, and resist being lifted. Each bucket is hauled up slowly, heavy and unstable. The smell burns your nose and throat. It gets into your clothes immediately, into your skin. Breathing through your mouth makes no difference. You swallow it with every breath. This work is routine, it is scheduled. Pits fill and they have to be emptied. If they are not, waste rises into the building above. Neighbors complain, authorities intervene. Someone ends up down here anyway. By morning, the pit will be lower. The privy will be usable again. People will walk past the house without thinking about what was removed during the night. Nothing cleaned itself. Someone climbed down and gathered it by hand. This job has a name. Gong Farmer. That is how medieval towns kept functioning, and this is where it begins. You did not end up in this kind of work by chance. In a medieval town, jobs like this were rarely taken by people with options. Land was scarce, trades were restricted, guilds decided who could enter and who could not. If you were poor, already known for certain work, or simply had nowhere else to go, this kind of labor remained available. Sometimes it stayed within a family. A father emptied pits. A son learned how to move carefully, where to place his feet, and how long he could stay below before the air became dangerous. The work continued because it paid, and because leaving it meant starting again with nothing. Others took the job when circumstances tightened. Rent came due, food ran short, a town needed its pits emptied. The pay was higher than field work because few people were willing to do it. The filth and the risk were part of the bargain. Once you were associated with this work, people remembered. They knew where you went at night and what you handled there. Even after washing, that knowledge followed you through the streets. It shaped where you were welcome and where you were not. Refusing the work was rarely simple. Waste accumulated quickly. Households were fined when pits overflowed. Someone had to be sent down. If you were already known for the job, it came back to you. This was not a temporary step. It closed more doors than it opened, but it kept food on the table, and in a medieval town, that was often enough. Gong Farmer was only one example. There were other jobs built on the same logic, work that existed because the alternative was worse. The Leech Catcher. This work happens in water. You wade into marshes, ponds and slow rivers where the bottom cannot be seen clearly and the edges smell of rot. Your legs are bare. Cloth gets in the way. Leeches will not attach to fabric. You stand and wait. Leeches respond to warmth and movement. They attach quietly. At first there is little sensation, then pressure, then warmth as they begin to feed. You let them fill themselves. That is what makes them useful. When there are enough, you remove them one at a time and place them into a container. Some leave blood running down your legs. Some tear slightly when pulled free. The water clouds around you. These leeches are collected for medical use. Bloodletting is one of the most common treatments in medieval medicine. Surgeons and physicians require live leeches in large numbers. Someone has to gather them repeatedly. The risks are constant. Open bites, infection, cold exposure, hours spent standing in foul water. Many leech catchers are women, often working alone. The pay is small but steady. When you leave the water, the leeches are taken away. The bites remain. The work ends here. Someone else begins using what you collected. This work takes place in daylight. It happens close to water, where the smell carries and everyone nearby is aware of it. Fresh wool cloth comes off the loom stiff and greasy. Natural oils from the sheep are still in the fibers. In that state, the cloth cannot be sold. Before it can move on, those oils have to be broken down. The cloth is soaked in tubs filled with water and urine, which cut through grease. The smell is sharp and persistent. It spreads beyond the workshop and settles into nearby streets. The cloth is then beaten, sometimes with heavy wooden hammers, sometimes under bare feet, worked for hours until the fibers tighten and thicken. The noise carries, arms swell, legs ache. The smell clings to skin and clothing and does not leave when the day ends. Mistakes ruin the cloth. Careless work wastes time and material. Done properly, the fabric becomes dense, durable, and valuable. The wool trade depends on this stage. Fullers work near streams and rivers, partly for water, partly because towns prefer them kept at a distance. Their workshops are easy to locate. It stinks incredibly. When the cloth leaves, it is clean and finished. The people who worked it carry the rest with them. Not all unwanted work took place in pits or water. Some jobs were avoided for other reasons. Butchers worked surrounded by blood, fat and offal. Animals were killed close to where the meat was sold, often in open sheds or narrow streets. Waste built up quickly. The smell followed the work and the people doing it. During outbreaks of disease, butchers were watched closely and blamed easily. Tanners handled animal skins long after the animal was dead. Hides were soaked in lime, scraped clean and left to rot just enough to loosen the hair. The process depended on decay. Tanneries were pushed toward the edges of towns, near water, where the smell could drift away from daily life. Gravediggers worked hardest when conditions were worst. During epidemics, bodies arrived faster than they could be buried properly. Graves were shallow, time was short. The work continued until there was no space left. Street cleaners scraped mud, dung, and refuse from roads that filled again almost immediately. Horses passed, animals wandered. People dumped waste when they thought no one was watching. Cleaning had to be repeated every day. This labor was visible. Its effects were temporary. The people doing it were known by what they handled and where they worked. Towns depended on this work daily. Most preferred not to think about it for long. This kind of work did not end when the day was over. It followed you home. The smell was noticed quickly. It lingered. People remembered it. Strong odors were linked to rot, sickness, and danger, and anyone who worked with waste, blood, hides, or decay carried that association with them. Neighbors kept their distance. Conversations ended sooner. Invitations became rare. In crowded towns, space was limited, but people still tried to avoid standing too close to those whose work brought filth with it. Over time, this separation settled into habit. Certain trades clustered on the edges of towns. Certain families became known for certain kinds of labor. Children learned early which streets felt open to them and which did not. The work itself was accepted. It had to be done. The people doing it were tolerated rather than welcomed. They lived within the town, but rarely at ease inside it. That distance made these jobs hard to leave and easy to inherit. Medieval towns depended on this labor to keep moving. When pits were left full, waste rose into houses. When hides were not processed, leather stopped circulating. When cloth was not finished, trade slowed. When bodies were not buried, fear spread faster than the disease itself. These failures became visible quickly. Streets were harder to walk through. Markets smelled worse. Complaints followed. Daily life grew harder to manage. So the work continued, night after night, season after season. The same kinds of jobs carried out in the same places, by the same kinds of people. Town authorities might regulate it, fine it, or push it further from sight, but they did not replace it. Medieval life produced waste constantly. It also depended on its steady removal. That process was physical, direct, and done by hand. Most people gave it little thought when it happened as expected. When it did not, it was impossible to ignore. By morning, the streets are usable again. The privies work, cloth moves to market, hides dry. The dead are out of sight. The town looks ordinary, and life continues without pausing to ask how that happened. The people who did this work step aside. They wash as well as they can. They change what clothes they have. They move through the town, knowing where they are welcome and where they are not. Their labor disappears quickly. Their presence does not. This kind of work was not unusual in the Middle Ages. It was routine. It was expected, and it existed wherever people lived close together and produced more than they could keep. Medieval towns rested on labor like this, carried out by hand, often at night, often out of view. Kings and laws mattered, but so did the steady removal of what could not remain. That part of life rarely appears in stories. It was there all the same. Thank you for watching Medieval Realities. More stories like this are coming.